Good morning, Matt.
Rick, how you going, man? How you feeling?
Oh, feeling fantastic, Matt. Thanks for asking. How are you today?
I am wonderful.
You know, this is going to come out after Thanksgiving, but to everyone listening, happy Thanksgiving, and we're thankful for anyone who listens to this, and to both of you, actually. So thanks to my mom and to Matt's mom for listening in. We appreciate you, our vast
I didn't think
audience.
my mom listens.
Okay, well, thanks to my mom. Thanks to our one listener who also doesn't listen. So I guess we're just thanking each other. Happy Thanksgiving, Matt. I'm thankful for you. But no, seriously, thankful for all of you guys out there doing the good deed of keeping people and your communities healthy and fit. It is a noble pursuit, that is for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I think we've been doing this almost 2 years now.
The podcast.
Has it been that long?
Yeah.
Huh. It's pretty crazy.
I feel like everything in my life, because I'm older, it's like, how long have you been doing this? And it's always some outlandishly long period of time for everything in my life.
Are you about to have a mental breakdown?
Yeah, I'm going to start crying on today's podcast. We'll feature Rick crying about his age.
I mean, you kind of missed your midlife crisis.
Yeah, I haven't had one yet. I guess that means I'm not at midlife, so I'll live to be 104.
Or you're due, and it's going to be an explosion.
It's going to be, if I drive in a Corvette and my hairline gets better than it is now, you're going to know something's up. Something's happening. Right?
I think it's just going to disappear, but we'll go with that.
That's right. I'll be down. It'll be like, what was that movie, Shawshank Redemption, where I'm down sanding some boat on the beach. Come down and visit me.
That'd be all right.
Yeah, it doesn't sound too bad, actually. But funny, we're going to mention this. We're propping the whole community and giving thanks for anyone that gets up and does this work all day, every day, because it is a noble pursuit. And that leads to today's topic, which is going to be fitness gimmicks. And, sometimes we look at the gimmicky side of the fitness industry through different lenses. And some days I'm like, listen, some days my view would be, well, I'm glad people are just out moving around. It's good for them. And that's true. It's better than nothing. I mean, we've said that many times. Well, it's better than nothing. Well, it's better than nothing. But I think now that we're in the franchise space and we're looking at things not only through what the consumer likes and what kind of benefit that they will get, but more so like what's the business model of a fitness concept, and does it have legs? Does it have longevity? And now there's a different lens. There's that in addition to what's good for the consumer, right? And you got to look at both things. And so that's what we're going to talk about today is like fitness gimmicks. What the risk is with getting into a concept that's very on trend, because by default, if it's trendy, it's going to then be off trend or out of style at some point. And you really want to be careful with that. If you're signing a franchise agreement or if you're just opening a business, you're in it for a while. Franchises are typically 10-year agreements. And so do you really want to get into a 10-year relationship with a thing or a concept that can be easily disrupted or that may go out of style? So we'll just talk about some of the things that we see and some of the situations. And then we'll wrap up today by talking about what is our stance? Like, where do we fit on this spectrum of gimmicky and trendy?
Right. And,
what is our prescription? Like, what are the consumers getting from us based on what we're prescribing into market? And where does it sit right on that spectrum? So first of all, let's start with technology. So there are a lot of fitness concepts that are based heavily on a piece of technology. What do you think the drawbacks of that may be, Matt?
Well, I mean, we've had technology and we've used it and seen over the years. It's literally controls the whole customer experience. So literally, either the client gets bored and start to use it, or something else comes out that's better, and they're going to go to that place instead of your place.
Right. Well, we'll talk about technology in general. So technology can be easily disrupted. I think it moves faster. It moves faster than we do behaviorly. That's for sure. If you look at things like social media platforms and stuff, and how like we're barely able to keep up with how our brain can process all of that. So technology obviously just moves very quickly, and it's very disruptive. And so if you based a fitness concept on a piece of technology, there's one or two risks there. One could be that the technology is disrupted by something that does something similar, but it does it better. And better might be cheaper, faster, less friction, whatever that may be, right? So an example of that might be like an Orange Theory, right? They did a really good job. And of course, a lot of it's timing, like we've talked about. They did a great job they came into being, if you will, right at the time that wearable technology jumped off, like 2012-ish, right, is when wearable technology was really jumping off and everybody was grabbing Fitbits and the Apple Watches were a thing now. And it was like, wow. And so right about that time, they launch a fitness franchise concept based on heart rate training. And they even branded a calorie, right, based on burning. So they've got splat points and things like that. And it's really cool. And they're still pretty relevant. They're doing a good job. But I think the thing that scares you with that is if the whole thing is based on a workout that's based on a piece of technology like heart rate training, and then science, looks at this over a period of time because it was new and innovative, and they say, hey, turns out that training based on heart rate is not that relevant, or it doesn't get you where you need to be or whatever that might be, then what do you do with your brand, right? Because you're literally based on a piece of technology, and that's been your claim. Well, you're out, right? And so I think, again, when I look at this through the lens of the potential business owner or the franchisee, do you want to get into a concept where it's just basically luck and timing as to whether or not the technology that your concept is based on is going to be relevant for more than your franchise agreement, which is 10 years, right? So wearable technology is obviously proven to be good. Now you're seeing things swing back to more recovery-based wearable technology with the rings and all the Cure rings and all the things that are leaning more towards recovery. And now you're starting to see again, the pendulum swing back from hey, the goal isn't always to go in the gym and drive your heart rate as high as possible, right? And there may be some actual negative ramifications, even for the goals that most people go in there for, which are feel better, look better, right? Because fat loss isn't necessarily affected mostly by working out as hard as you can 3 days a week. It's not. As a matter of fact, it might be adversely affected, right? So first of all, technology, you got to be really careful. There's a new company in the franchise space, and it's based on a technology that's not new at all. It just gets repackaged every few years and brought back to market. And it's the whole the electrical stimulation, right? And I mean, hell, I was doing that in high school for rehab for a knee injury, right? It was like you're doing E-stim back then, and it's just involuntary muscle contractions. And then you see there was a wave of QVC based products that you put on your stomach that would cause your ab muscles to fire, that was supposed to give you six-pack abs. Anyone listening to this knows you don't get six-pack abs by passive muscle contractions based on electrical stimulation.
I got one on right now.
Do you? I wonder where your face was, where your eyebrows keep going up and down. I don't think you have it on the right part of your body.
Oh.
Yeah, it goes on your waist, Matt. Matt's like, oh, that's different. That's not what we're talking about. Oh, God. So we're losing it today.
Continue.
Yeah, this is pre-Thanksgiving. We're not even drinking yet. So we've got this shirt and pair of short pants that has electrode hooked to it, and it just fires off and makes your muscles fire, and you work out while you're wearing it.
You don't see yourself doing that for 10 years?
No. I mean, what if you stepped in a puddle of water, right? And then you're riding the lightning. You're dead. You're done. Riding that lightning. You're out. But all kidding aside, okay, I've seen that. It was used in therapy in the 1920s when I was in high school. Now it's still around, right? And it's come back 6 or 7 times now in my 30 years in business as a viable fitness solution. There's zero science to say that it works. Now, you can cherry pick or create your own study, right, to say oh, look how relevant this is. But at the same time, I don't think so. I mean, if it worked, because we have access to the foremost strength conditioning coaches in the world who are on the tip of the spear scientifically.
Probably be using it.
If it worked, I think the multi-million-dollar athletes that these strength coaches work with would be using said technology. They're not for a reason, because it's bullshit.
Right.
At the end of the day. So to come out with a concept, and this is a franchise, so a franchised concept based on what's not new technology, it's actually just reskinned technology that we know, historically speaking, does not work. I don't understand it. I don't. And so it pains me to see people getting into opportunities like that when I know there's no shot in hell that those unit economics for that franchisee who invests their life savings into something like that is going to be around.
Right.
In 10 years, it's not. So it's just, it hurts your heart to see these poor folks get into this. It looks sexy because someone's wearing a suit and there's wires everywhere and you're like, whoa, that's got to work, right? But if you don't know any better, maybe you think that, but I'm here to tell you that kind of stuff doesn't work. So I think if it sounds too good to be true and it's super on trend and it's super gimmicky, keep looking, right? Don't stop at that. So that's one thing. It's just any kind of technology. It's okay. It's got to be in your business. It's always going to be there. But I think we've spoken to this a million times. The technology, certainly in our brand, should be used to enhance the human connection, not replace it. And it can't actually, it should be to enhance even the training, like the protocols and the science, not to replace it.
Right.
Because, again, it's like if it sounds too good to be true, if it's like come in your street clothes and work out for 20 minutes twice a week, it's like, what scientist has ever done any in-depth studies that shows you that you can work out 2 days a week for 20 minutes in your street clothes and get any kind of results? You cannot, right?
Yeah. Well, that's just right. I mean, it's just selling the trend, and then basically just like they get the customers in those places, it's probably a little bit more emotional decision. They think it's easy. And then guess what? It doesn't last, or you stop going, or you're
right. And listen, I mean, in a lot of ways, like fitness can be that way, where you're selling you're selling the idea of future goals. I mean, it's difficult. Sure. The great thing about fitness is everyone knows they need to do it, and so if you showed them a shortcut to doing the thing they need to do that they don't want to do, it could be compelling. But I will tell you that it doesn't take long in a local market, if you're in a brick and mortar, to burn the whole market with something that just doesn't work. So technology. It's awesome. Be careful with it. Make sure that it enhances the fitness experience, that it doesn't replace it. It's not completely based on that because, again, can be easily disrupted, and you're typically in a long-term relationship with this technology. The next would be like single modality fitness concepts, and we've seen those come and go as well. So in 30 years, I've probably seen cycling come and go, 3 times, like big.
Yep.
It was gone, and SoulCycle brought it back as a boutique offering, right? And then, of course, you've got the online offering of Peloton, and you've seen what's happened to them post-pandemic, stocks tanking. It just keeps going down, right? Yep. Now they're trying to come out with like a personal training thing. It's like, oh, too late. It just turns out we're not.
Talking about technology, somebody else moved back in that space. It's going to do it better.
Exactly. Exactly. And I mean, well, and a lot of it's just conditional. Like you said, it's all timing, right? So if there's a pandemic, and you have to be at home, wow, Peloton looks really relevant. It's like everyone's like, is brick and mortar ever going to come back? I'm like, I think so. I mean, we haven't changed that much in 12 months. We've been evolving for thousands and thousands of years. I don't think we're going to change in a year, right? And lo and behold, everyone's numbers, including ours, are ahead of where they were pre-pandemic in the brick and mortar space, which is also awesome, right? So I would say single modality, got to be really careful. Biking, rowing, boxing, those things come and go. But to have an entire business model based on one type of exercise, also a really bad idea. And I think, again, you're just banking on the trends that you're buying into are going to stick around long enough for you to get a good return on investment. And maybe if it's 5 to 7 years, which is a long time for a trend in fitness to stick around, then you might get lucky and be able to sell and keep going. But if not, then you are.
Just stuck.
You're just stuck with something that can... what happens when there's a different concept based on the exact same thing right down the street from you, right? And their bikes are green and your bikes were yellow. It's like...
Everybody has the right bikes now or rowers.
Well, if you think about it, there's so many class-based single modality type of things, whether it be yoga, Pilates, they only do this one thing, right? That was sort of the birth of ClassPass. And so in these densely populated urban areas, you could buy one pass, and it speaks to what the customer wants who buys that type of product, which is they want something different every day. They just want to bounce around and like, I'll box today, I'll bike tomorrow, I'll row here, I'll do that, because they're all single modalities. So it's not like you're going in there with a goal in mind, and the equipment and the process isn't as important as the goal, right? It's based on the thing, and the thing can be easily replaced with a better thing, right? As opposed to a relationship. And that thing can also just fall out of favor, or it might be proven that it's not as effective for your particular goals. And we're not even talking about goals. We're just saying, hey, come in here and get a great workout. Yeah. Not necessarily a bad thing, but for that customer avatar that's 30 years old, already pretty fit, just wants to bounce around, great. Terrible for the business owner, because you got somebody who's going to pop into your place once a month. Right. And then the other places, they're going to go do all these other class-based things that to them solve the same problem, which is I tick the box if I got to work out today, right? But good luck getting that person to come 3 or 4 days a week. That's just not that sticky. So careful with single modality as well. And then I think it leads ultimately then, like if we're here like slinging mud, so to speak, or throwing shade at these other kind of concepts and technologies, well, what makes this so great? Like why would we feel like we're on the right thing? So kind of brought us back to the conversation we were having the other day, where I watched a podcast with a guy named Peter Attia, who is probably one of the foremost anti-aging doctors in the world. I think he started out as an oncology surgeon, and then he worked actually in the financial district for a while. And now he's back. And when he came back to medicine, he's like, I don't want to fix people that are already sick. I want to try to get in front of this. So like, how do we keep people healthy as they age? If you look at our customer avatar, 45, 65, this is something that people are interested in. You know, if you're 50 and you're feeling pretty good, you want to be feeling that good at 70, and you want to still be playing golf and, you know, driving your Porsche around the racetrack at 80. I mean, those are things that you want to keep doing. It's sort of the difference between your lifespan and your health span. And I think, you know, Neil Spruce would say like your play span, like how long of your life can you do the things you enjoy, whatever those things may be, right? So Peter Attia comes in and he's got this lab, and they do everything from measuring telomere length and all kinds of things around anti-aging. And so he was talking about exercise, and on the podcast he said, listen, exercise does something that no medicine that we've come across can do. And we look at everything, and I mean everything, and no medication has been able to do what exercise does, which is if you have a baseline of fitness, which could be pretty low in the U.S., but let's just say there's a baseline, and someone starts exercising, it could move them up typically, say, 5 rungs on the ladder in the right direction, right? Even so much so, and this is what he said, was like, listen, if you smoked or if you had, you know, diabetes or something like that, it might move you down the ladder 2 or 3 rungs. And so he's like, I hate to say this, and this wouldn't be my prescription, but if, in fact, you kept smoking and didn't even treat your diabetes, but started exercising, if you're going to get 5 steps in the right direction from exercise and only 2 to 3 in the wrong direction, you would actually be moving up the ladder, which kind of makes sense. But I mean, think about it. Like, the exercise would override the poor habits. That's how strong it is. He's like, we literally haven't seen anything like, he's emphatically, you know, telling everyone this is literally the fountain of youth. So then the next question comes, okay, well, what kind of exercise? Like, I want a piece of that, so what should I be doing? And of course, I'm tuned in because I'm like, all right, are we on track, right? And again, we've got access to the best strength conditioning coaches in the world, but here's the foremost anti-aging expert, so what's he saying, right? And lo and behold, this was the prescription. So he's like, all right, so, you know, sarcopenia, which is loss of muscle from aging, right, is a really bad thing. And like, if you take a fall later in life because of weakness or something, it's really bad, you know. And then they cited studies where they would take people in their 80s and have them start strength training, and they would put on like 1.7 kilograms of muscle, which is a lot, right? And that would take maybe 3.5 months. Well, you know, on the other side of the spectrum, if you fell and were hurt, if you were in the hospital for 10 days, you would lose that same amount of muscle. So it's really critical, as you get older, that you keep your muscle mass up. And he spoke a lot about how doing that can help you prevent falling, you know, even if it's grabbing something as you're falling or whatever that may be. And because if you do, and you have an incident when you're older, it can be catastrophic. I mean, if you're 85 and you're clicking along pretty good and you fall down the stairs and break your hip or something, it could be the end, right? It really could. It could start just everything unraveling. So strength training to stave off sarcopenia, so to keep your muscle mass up, which is super important, 3 days a week. And he's like, look, and of course, you know, what kind of strength training? It's like, listen, the compound exercises, right? So it doesn't have to be a deadlift, but let's just say like that movement pattern, right? And he's like, oh, my wife's got a bad hip, so she does, you know, hip thrusts, and I do deadlifts, and then she does this, and I do that. But it was basically, if you look at the alloy programming, it's dead on with what we're doing. It's pushing and pulling for upper body. It's hip and knee dominant for lower body. It's some anti-extension, anti-rotation core. All of those things he spoke to. So it's like, okay, alloy, check, first thing, strength, right? Then it gets to what other type of exercise. And he's like, okay, so using anaerobic threshold as a baseline, you should spend 3 hours a week at a level 2, which if you think about that for sort of this 45 to 65 bracket, that would be like an easy bike ride or maybe a brisk walk, right? 3 hours a week. So his prescription was 4 days, 45 minutes, but you could do 3 days, an hour, however you want to split it up, right? And then again, per our prescription, it's like, you don't need to do hashtags, you know, air quotes, cardio, right? In the sense that you're at that weird no man's land of 80%. It's like, no, just move more. And we've talked about this a million times over, whether it be these blue zones in the world or whatever it is, like people just move more. So get your 3 days of weights in so you're strong, right? And then get out and move more. So get out and do a brisk walk 3 days a week for an hour or what have you, whatever that may be, treadmill, whatever you're, you know, fancy. But do that low-end cardio. Just move more. Okay, that's always been our prescription as well. Check, right? Then lastly, 1 day a week, get your heart rate up really high. and they recommended like the air bike, which is the one cardio implementation that we put in our programming. So again, check for alloy, right? And just they recommended like a 4 and 4. So 4 minutes on, 4 minutes off, repeated 5 times. That's that's going to be a 40-minute workout, and you're going to get your heart rate up pretty high, right? And so when I looked at that for us, it's like, okay, we're not programming that per se, but the way that we write programs, the way that you create programs, Matt, is we have a couple of days that are more dedicated to pure strength. But if you're coming in regularly, once a week, you're going to get what we would call, layman's term would be like a zinger, right? Like a workout that might be based on time or volume or something that's going to get your heart rate a little bit higher. You could count that then as that higher heart rate day. So if it's 2 to 3 days of strength training, move more, get your heart rate up. The heart rate, the high heart rate workout and the strength workouts are all handled by just coming to Alloy 3 days a week, period. And if we can just get you to move more outside the gym, that's it.
That's all we tell people every time.
That's it. And so that's not on trend. And if you have the foremost anti-aging clinic in the world, don't you think they're looking at everything from E-stem shirts to, heart rate training to whatever these things are? Of course they are, 100%. And what does it boil back down to? The absolute basics. Strength train 2 to 3 days a week. That's our prescription as well. Check. Move more the days you're not in the gym, right? 3 hours a week of just low movement, right? Check. 1 day a week, get your heart rate high. Hell, that's even handled here as well. So made me feel really good. Again, just another reiteration that we're on the right path. It's not gimmicky. It is #science, which is kind of a funny thing. Is that a derogatory? Will that get us canceled? Saying know. Science? Okay. Sorry. Research.
I don't think that's going to be the thing that gets us canceled. But
yeah, probably be your electric underwear, whatever the hell you're wearing today. That's getting us canceled. So we've got, the right prescription. It's not trendy. It's just based on science. And yes, it has a 4-letter word in it, which is work. But if we can make working out fun and less painful for folks because they enjoy their environment, we have a few laughs while they're here, we give them the accountability, someone's waiting on them, they stack that habit, and then they're like, okay, I'm doing this, I'm going to do the other things they're asking me to do. I'm going to start moving around more outside the gym. It's a process, right? But what happens is if you do that regularly, and that's not that much. I mean, you look at that amount of exercise, that's a lot for someone who's doing nothing.
Sure.
That was another question that on the podcast was like, well, what if somebody's brand new? They can't do all of that. It's like, well, you start somewhere. But what he said was interesting is at the end of the day, though, if you want to be that thriving 80-year-old, you got to pay the piper. You have to this is the minimal threshold of exercise that will get you everything you need. So to him, it was nothing because I think he's done like competitive, Ironmans and things like that. Right. So working out, 7 hours a week is like nothing. But he's doing it now and he feels great. And so that's what all their research is pointing to. So
great. Well, that's literally the Alloy prescription.
100%.
So, how long have you been doing this?
30 years.
30 years.
Well, think about the longevity of a brand.
Said there, huh?
Yeah, and we've said this
Mic
before.
drop.
Yeah, I'm out. Well, think about the longevity of a brand promise, right? So if the brand is based on a technology or, a single modality, it's like, okay, you're just making it about a thing. What's great about personal training is having that on the door simply speaks to accountability and specificity to the individual. What happens behind that allows us to be flexible. If new technology presents itself that's relevant, we'll be using it, believe me. But it doesn't change the brand promise because our entire brand is not built on something that could be disrupted and or go out of favor, right? Yeah. Fall out of favor. So I don't know. Obviously I like it as a long-term proposition. We've been doing it for 30 years. We've literally been doing the same thing for 30 years. Now we do it differently and we have amazing technology around it. But the brand promise is the same, which should speak to longevity to everyone involved, right? And the prescription, like the thing that we actually put into market and scientifically what we're recommending is dead on with what's going to help you, again, look good, feel great, live life to the fullest. That's our brand promise, to the consumer. And that's exactly what we're here to do. So apologies for the wackiness today because we're getting into holiday mode. But I hope that helps you guys understand. And if you own a fitness business, obviously take this to heart and do what you need. If you are a broker, I would say, listen, man, I know that there's some big fat commissions out there for wild fitness concepts, but do it with integrity. And I'm sure that most of you guys are doing that. And if you're thinking about getting into a franchise, if you're a potential franchisee, look at something that's got legs, that's been doing something relevant for a while, that's backed by science, that's not too on trend, and then you're doing yourself a big favor long term.
Absolutely. Love it.
All right, buddy.
All right. Catch you later.
See ya.